Well, hello there. Hello, and this feels so weird to say, but welcome to my YouTube channel. So for this first official video of my channel, which is not linked to my project, I will be doing a breakdown of my design collection. So I made this design collection as part of my speculative project, and today I'll be doing a little breakdown of the concept, research, as well as providing you with a little fashion film for the end result of it. So stay tuned. So I know it doesn't seem like it because I've already talked so much, but this is going to be an extremely fast-paced video, so buckle up. This project, as you know, was titled What Would You Wear? And it started as a quest for me to understand and imagine a future where clothing and fashion exists outside of the influence of rapidly changing trends, and what that future could look like. What kind of clothing would we wear? Is there even a single kind or category of clothing? And how can we possibly know, sitting here in 2021 with the resources and information that is available to us, what fashion will look like in, say, 100 years from now? Well, one of the ways to do this is by doing a little bit of research on the different aspects of the sustainable fashion movement as it is now, which is what I started with doing. So I started with doing research in 4 major categories of sustainable fashion development, which were of interest to me and which I also believe are integral pillars of the movement. First is the upcycling and recycling of clothing. Second is the revival of local crafts and communities. Third is the slow fashion movement. And fourth, fashion futures, aka what innovations and developments are happening in the fashion world right now that we can imagine will play an important role in the future of fashion. So initially I assumed that I would take up one of these categories and develop on it further, but the more I researched, the more I could see that all these aspects are interconnected in one way or the other. And I also realized that the biggest obstacle for each of these pillars of sustainability being explored or adopted by the common people is our current model of clothing consumption, which reduces fashion to a frivolous pastime and our clothing to disposable items of very less value. If you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Mainly because, why would anyone think about restoring, mending, emotionally connecting with, or even exploring the potential of their clothing beyond the purpose of covering themselves in a world which has so little respect for fashion, or a world where the fashion industry doesn't even seem to respect itself? So basically, the current system has to go. It's not just me saying it. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, more and more people are becoming increasingly privy to this fact and looking for ways to change the current system. And ultimately, that formed the basis for the concept behind each garment in this collection. I wanted every look in the collection to represent an idea of where fashion might head towards if we are successful in eliminating our overconsumption and fast-changing trends. Basically, I used the information from my secondary research as well as a bit of my own mind mapping to reach a conclusion upon 4 directions of fashion evolution. Now, I must mention that I'm not claiming that these 4 garments represent what all of humanity is going to wear. I'm not saying that everyone is going to wear these colors or these silhouettes and styles. It's not possible for me to predict that. And since I wasn't making these clothes for a client or a particular person, the garments are designed according to my personal tastes and preferences. So please think of that if they don't fit into your preferred aesthetic. Instead, the way to interpret it is that each look represents a concept or an idea of what fashions might be like in the future. Anyhow, the garment styles are heavily inspired by the fashions of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. My personal tastes again. The theme of the collection is wabi-sabi, which is a Japanese philosophy centered around the idea of growth and decay and embracing imperfections. I chose a bright pop color palette for this collection and worked with mostly scrap fabrics and recycled materials for the garments. Now let's head into the looks. But wait! I must mention that although I have not cited any of my research sources in this video, however, I will post a link to my blog in the description below where I put together a post with all my research notes so that you can go and look at it, including links to the original source material. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of information for anyone who would like to know more about sustainable fashion, as well as understand things that I'm saying in this video a little bit better. Okay, now back to the presentation.
Look 1. Absurdity. This design is to represent the idea of future fashions becoming very bizarre and outrageous, without a system of trends or set rules of dressing to regulate the line of what is and isn't socially acceptable. The first look is adopted from the 1960s space age aesthetic, when such geometric and especially spherical or rounded silhouettes were popular, akin to the space shuttles and satellites being sent up at this time. Think Sputnik 1. Look 2. Time-traveling artist. This garment represents the idea of future clothing taking heavy inspiration from or adopting historical fashions and reinterpreting them in unique ways. This is inspired by Jackie Kennedy's famous pink suit and is embroidered in the style of Pipli embroidery from Orissa, which makes use of waste materials and scrap fabrics to create intricate patchwork designs onto a garment or cloth. The statement, Jackie plus Marilyn love forever, is intended as an overturning of the sexist rhetoric of pinning women against each other in the Jackie versus Marilyn debate. Look 3. Southside. Intended to represent the idea of more and more people returning to their ethnic attire, albeit with a twist. The garment is inspired by the traditional South Indian Langavoni attire, with the upper bodice or choli replaced with an 80s-style dolman sleeve jacket, made by piecing together fabric scraps and employing visible mending. The reason for converting the choli into a jacket is a cheeky nod to my side of South India, where I've often heard the women refer to the sari or half sari blouse as a jacket or jacket. The jacket design also represents the belief that in the distant future, the concept of wearing repaired or visibly mended garments will dissolve itself from being a marker of lower social status to an acceptable and necessary practice for everyone. Look 4. Junket. This outfit represents the idea of people turning to experimentative and multifunctional garments. The jacket is made entirely out of waste packaging material and stuffed with fabric scraps from previous garments. Notice how every garment employs to some degree the waste materials and scraps of the garment preceding it. It is my firm belief that future fashion will be mindful of and try to reduce wastage as much as possible, partly due to concerns over sustainability and partly due to no clear trends in fabric and material usage, meaning that people are free to experiment and indulge their creativity in this arena of clothing. So, basically that implies that in the future, wearing a jacket made out of, say, a trash bag or any other unconventional material or constructing accessories out of waste will go from being quirky DIY projects to creative and out-of-the-box fashion.
Ladies and gentlemen, we request all passengers to kindly return to their seats, fasten their seatbelts, and brace for impact. We are entering a brave new world. Here, the fashions are absurd, unconventional, nostalgic, provocative, expressive, complex, ambiguous, layered, sustainable, and nothing like you've ever seen before. Thank you for taking this journey with us. We hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.
And that's all of the looks. 4 different outfits representing 4 different directions in which fashions can progress in the distant future without the influence of clothing trends. I, for one, am glad to be done with this project. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had an amazing time doing this entire thing, but I am very glad to be done with it because I have many more exciting projects to move on to, which I will be talking about on my Instagram. But to all those who've stuck around with me until the very end, thank you so much for all of your help and your participation in this project. It really would not have been possible without your support. Of course, as I announced on my Instagram, there are still a few BTS footage, process work clips, and a lot of my random ramblings that I had recorded, which I would still like to share with people, but I'll keep putting those out in the form of posts on my Instagram, so definitely follow along because it gets weird. Yeah, let's just say that. But anyways, once again, thank you so much to everyone who participated and who stuck with me till the very end, and I can't wait for you to see what I have in store next.